Most of us know that we can get our driving license at 18 years old. But do you know that you can start working at 13 years old and that you can start serving NS from 16.5 years old? Watch on as I explain what you can do at each age in Singapore, as there are some surprises you likely didn't know of. So,
When you are 7 years old.
For a start, when you are 7, it's compulsory for you to go to school. Yes, education in Singapore is compulsory, which is under the Compulsory Education Act.
When you are 13 years old.
When you are 13 years old, new Singaporeans and PRs must start to apply for exit permit if they want to leave Singapore for over 3 months. If they live for over 2 years, a bond of $75,000 or 50% of combined annual gross income of both parents for the preceding year, whichever is higher, needs to be provided. Well, the reason is simple. You are going to serve NS, so it's to ensure that you will not be an aimlessee lah. Also, at 13 years old, you can technically start to work, but there are many restrictions, like it should be in a non-industry setting and it's only light duties. You can check out the link I provided for more info, but nowadays, it's easier to find an atachi in an ice kacang than to find a 13-year-old Singaporean who's willing to work.
When you are 15 years old.
When you are 15 years old, that's when you get your first NRIC. Yes, I say first because we'll eventually change it, as we cannot use our 15-year-old face in our NRIC for the rest of our life, right? It will usually be done in your school, so that's likely why we did not have much memories of it, since it's just another day in school.
When you are 16 years old.
When you are 16 years old, that's when it's legal for you to have sex when you consent to it. However, note that if a person is between 16 to 18, a person can also be charged if the parties were in an exploitative relationship or if there's payment involved. Now, this will require a full video to explain, so just check out the link I've left in the description. In addition, when you are 16.5 years old and are a new Singaporean or PR, you will also receive a letter for you to register for NS. And if you want to, you can actually apply to start serving a NS from this age.
When you are 18 years old.
When you reach 18 years old, that's when you have reached a major milestone, whereby you can do quite a lot of things. Firstly, you can finally get your driving license. Although in Singapore, many of us didn't go for lessons at this age because driving lessons are more expensive than lapubus. When you are 18, you can also officially buy and consume alcohol. However, note that you don't need to be 18 to buy food products, excluding beverages containing more than 0.5% alcohol. So don't worry, you're not breaking the law when you buy the rum and raisin ice cream when you were 12 years old. 18 is also the age that you can start your own business, as the minimum age to register a business at ACRA is 18 years old. And here's something interesting. The law has been amended since 2009 to allow 18 years old to sign most contracts in Singapore. Well, that makes sense since running a business involves lots of contracts. However, there are a few major things that 18 years old still cannot sign, usually big property transactions like leases over 3 years. Also, as an 18-year-old, you can officially get married, but you will need permission from your parents or legal guardians. You can only get married without anyone's consent when you are 21 years old. And yes, the next milestone is 21 years old.
When you are 21 years old.
As mentioned, when you are 21 years old, you don't need anyone's consent to get married. I know that because my wife didn't ask for my consent when we get married. Anyways, 21 years old is also a rather big milestone. You can finally vote, and if you want to, you can even run for elections to be a member of parliament. Also, at 21 years old, you can buy cigarettes and smoke, but of course don't do it lah. Anyways, this policy was actually just revised since 2021, as prior to that, it was 18 years old. In addition, at 21 years old, you can enter casinos, because technically, the official minimum age for gambling is 21. But if so, why do you see this sign? Well, because for Singapore pools, the minimum age is 18 and not 21.
Wait, so the minimum age to gamble is 21 years old, right?
Yeah.
Then why Singapore pools is 18?
Singapore pools not gambling what?
Yeah, because Singapore pools is actually charity donation.
No lah, we are kidding You see, according to the Gambling Control Act, there are a few types of gambling. So Singapore pools type is for 18 and above, while those hardcore gambling is for 21 and above. Now that you are fully adult, what's next are usually about money and health.
When you are 30 years old.
If you are looking to advertise your business in this channel, we can help you. There are guaranteed views and many big brands have trusted us. Just click on the link in the description. When you are 30 years old, please try to do your best because that's when you are going to re-register your NRIC with a new picture if you have not been issued with a replacement NRIC in the last 10 years. The interesting thing is that if you are married, you can also include your married name as well. Also, when you are 30 years old, you can be a PHV or taxi driver. Yeah, this is why you only see uncles or aunties driving PHV or taxis and not youngsters with Cao Beng cars, because there's actually an age limit for that.
When you are 35 years old.
When you are 35 years old, you have hit another milestone. You can finally buy a HDB if you are not married. Now, what you might not know is that it's not just for singles alone. You can also buy with other single friends or an unmarried partner. It's rather complicated, so if you are single and 35 years old and above, you can check out the link in the description.
When you are 40 years old.
When you are 40 years old and are a male Singaporean, you no longer need to do any reservist trainings or any NS-man duties for most people, as according to the Enlistment Act, there's a statutory age limit of 40 years old for that. It's nevertheless hard for people to still serve his NS-man duties in his late 30s since many will have completed all the reservist cycles by then, unless you defer FVICT However, this age limit is at 50 years old if you are an officer. And because you are now 40 years old and your body will now have more wear and tear, you can now join Healthier SG, whereby you can choose a regular family doctor who will advise you on your health issues, and you also have some subsidized screenings or whatnot.
When you are 55 years old.
When you are 55 years old, your kids and grandkids will suddenly be very nice to you because that's when you can start to withdraw money from your CPF account, provided that you have a lot of money in it. Simply put, you can withdraw the excess savings in your CPF account. Now, just be mindful, while your kids and grandkids might not eye your money, scammers love this money, so please look out for scammers. Also, at 55 years old, you can no longer trick others that you are young looking because you will be re-registering your NRIC again.
When you are 60 years old.
When you are 60 years old, you are now officially a senior citizen. Not only would you be able to get the popular Purple Senior Citizen Concession Card, businesses like supermarkets will also provide discounts for you. There are more specials for senior citizens, like longer green men at traffic lights, cheaper entrance fees for attractions, and even free meals from TikTokers who want to use you as a content to show how kind they are. But you are likely still working until...
When you are 63 years old.
According to the Retirement and Re-employment Act, when you are 63 years old, you have officially hit the minimum retirement age. But interestingly, this will increase to 64 years old from 1st July 2026 and will eventually increase to 65 years old by 2030.
When you are 65 years old.
Okay, this is when you realize that all the years of the CPF deductions are all worth it. When you are 65 years old, you will start to receive money payouts from your CPF account. How much you will get depends on how much you have had in your CPF account. Now, there are of course more of the things that you do in different ages. I've just listed out the more important ones. If you can think of more, just indicate in the comment. In the meantime, if you want to live longer to experience all of this, you might want to stop using TikTok so that you can kind of live longer. Watch this video and you'll understand. Also, follow me on Instagram if you have not done so, as we publish exclusive short videos there, link in description. And if you want to advertise with us, even as a standalone video, do contact us. Thank you for spending almost 7 minutes with me. I really appreciate it and hope you learned something.